Hello, everybody. Welcome to Barbara and Barbara, both Barbaras, as well as to Linda and to Peter and to Bradley. A special welcome to Mariana and Allison, who are two new members to the online cohort. I hope you're enjoying the course and the readings and the discussions. I'd also like to welcome Tiffany and Gus. Gus, we haven't heard from you yet. We understand that you were in Nepal, and we hope you had a wonderful time there and that you're rested and rejuvenated, and look forward to hearing your story next week. Also, welcome to Shapriya, and Shapriya, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, as well as to Allison and Renata and Rosanna and to Ada. Also, who am I forgetting? Marshalyn and Mary. Welcome to both of you. And I think I've got everybody. If I've forgotten anybody, I apologize. Just let me know. In this podcast, what I'd like to do is sort of briefly summarize what we've been talking about this week and make some links and connections to the readings for next week. So first, thank you very much for those wonderful writing memory introductions. It's sort of an unusual way to begin a course to talk about something that specific, but it allows us to kind of jump right into the writing process by starting with how our own processes started. And it seemed like largely many of you really enjoyed learning how to write and have warm memories with family, friends, and school special teachers who were very much a part of that. And it seemed like poetry definitely was one of those things that seemed to resonate with people in many, many different ways. Others I could see didn't find writing to be particularly enjoyable. A combination of school or curriculum. Teacher, for example, really didn't make it very memorable, but rather a very frustrating process. And also the differences between writing in your first language and second language, the pedagogies there differed greatly in many of your examples. And I know from my own experience teaching writing, and I've been teaching writing almost 2 decades now, a lot of students find it to be a very frustrating process and don't always have very good memories of it. And so it's interesting for us as teachers to think about, okay, what really is enjoyable in writing and how can we actually recreate that for our own students? And beginning with yourself in terms of what you liked and what you didn't like is a great way to begin. Also, I wanted to connect a little bit of the writing memories to the first chapter of Ferris and Hedgecock, because if you've noticed, our own experience with writing largely reflected those paradigms in writing from first and second language composition theory. So the movement from current traditional rhetoric, which is largely the product approach, to the continuum of the process approach, looking at expressivism and the process, what we think of today is largely the traditional process approach, which is the drafting and the feedbacks and so forth, and how many of us kind of marched through this continuum, or we were sort of caught in between the two. And I know for myself, in high school there was a huge shift. Up until a certain grade, it had been largely the product approach, and then I came back the next year. I think it was my second year of high school, and the whole process around writing had shifted. And there was teacher feedback, there was free writes, there was peer feedback groups, which I'd never experienced before, and actually found it really refreshing and rewarding, because now I got a sense of what my peers thought of my writing, and I got to incorporate their ideas into my writing before I gave it to my teacher, which I thought was, in retrospect now, was quite a good thing to do. It certainly made my writing stronger, I think, in the long run. So to comment on some of your feedback or experiences with the reading, I really enjoyed reading what Bradley had to write about the prompts. Prompts are very problematic, and I think they were somewhat problematic in the Wang and Wen article, and they certainly deserve a lot more discussion and conversation among writing instructors. If you're interested, you should read more by Paul Pryor on teacher feedback, and also by Vi Ramanathan and Dwight Atkinson. Both of these authors talk a lot about writing and prompts and assignment guidelines. Paul Pryor, for example, talked a little bit about how the better writing assignments are in terms of how they're crafted, the better writing prompts themselves are constructed. That will not only save the student a lot of heartache, worry, and frustration in trying to figure out what the teacher wants, but will also make the research process and the drafting process a lot easier. And once that happens, chances are that the teacher feedback will become a less onerous approach for the teacher in the end. I mean, you go to these writing conferences, and a lot of these teachers are complaining about what drudgery it is to give feedback. So his idea is, well, we need to spend more time writing the prompt itself, and if you do that, you'll make your lives easier in the end. Via Ramanathan and Dwight Atkinson did a sort of ethnographic case study at the University of Alabama in the mid-90s, looking at an EAP ESL course and a first semester composition course. And they found that the ESL students, they would finish the ESL course and they would move right into the composition course. The composition instructors, who were largely teaching monolingual native speakers of English, were complaining that the ESL students couldn't write, they didn't know how to draft, they may have been able to write grammatical sentences, but that's where it basically ended. So there was lots of complaints. The departments weren't getting along. So they did a thorough ethnographic case study where they sat in on classes, they observed, they looked at the feedback, they looked at the writing prompts, the assignment guidelines, they interviewed the teachers and the students. And what they found that the native speakers in the composition courses got these beautifully crafted prompts and assignment guidelines, very clear. On the other hand, the ESL students didn't get any of that. They got 1 or 2 sentences, and that's largely it. And so, they struggled with writing, and when they got into the writing courses, they weren't really prepared. So that information alone allowed the program to go back and kind of streamline their processes and figure out, okay, how can we actually improve our writing programs, and looking at, the assignment guidelines, starting with that, and, crafting something that is certainly more clear and supportive and gives students a sense of how to even begin. But again, this goes back to some of the very different things I was talking about last week between the humanities and the social sciences. The humanities, composition, the idea of writing and composing very thorough, clear prompts and assignment guidelines is very much part of their tradition. ESL, coming out of applied linguistics and the social sciences, wasn't. They never really thought about writing. And again, audiolingualism had a hold on writing for such a long time that, people didn't really think of anything beyond the sentence level. So the teachers themselves didn't get any training and didn't even think about, well, how can we actually write all of this down and compose all of this? So that knowledge that they learned went to certainly help in one way, kind of bridge the gap between the two fields to help make that transition for ESL students into mainstream composition classrooms a little bit easier. So great question, and maybe many of you can think about how you would actually draw on the findings from that article for the final assignment, where you have to come up with your own writing lesson plan, thinking about prompts, writing prompts, thinking about how students use first and second language in answering prompts, in coming up with writing assignments, or answering writing assignments, drafting essays, from brainstorming and general heuristics to actually the sentence level issues that come about. So that can be one way to start thinking about that. So I'm going to stop at this 8-minute mark, and I'm going to finish up with commenting on some other entries.